all, let us sum up this course material. So those of you who decide not to continue, you will at least have a little bit of takeaways with you from this course material. So I want to prove some points here, but it's going to be a little bit offensive. But I have worked with people for a very, very long time. Sorry about that. And I have also worked with people in the progression work, and I have taught the higher order sciences when we talk about the alien agenda. There's a lot of stuff I have put in there already, which I thought would give people the insights. But the matter of the fact is that not really until you have experienced things will you know what to do with it. So this is also part of the skill sets of those of us who are and want to work as change makers. The understanding of, okay, when we have had incidents, whenever we are experiencing something, how do we deal with it? That's the really, really good question. And this is where we have different versions of humans that are dealing with things in different ways. We have the ones that right away go into denial and are not looking at it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it, blah, 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 blah. And they are just they saw it, but they forget it and they go into their comfort zone and pretend it doesn't exist, pushing it away, denial. Then we have the other ones that go into the defensive mode, which goes with it's kind of specific type of energy rings that are in the energy system of that person. And that is typically because that person is either so influenced by the energetic parasites, or because that person is completely controlled by a faction or is part of a military project. And it sucks. It's fucking sucks when people discover what they are and they don't like it and they don't feel comfortable with it. But there are ways to get out of it. And that was some of the things I taught in the whole integration classes 1 to 4, where I actually try to teach, okay, this is the way they're doing stuff. These are the rules. These are the ways that they are around each other and us. And we need to do certain trials and we need to get free of certain things and we need to be able to drum up the holographic councils, etc., etc. And even though that was taught, because people are not experiencing it, they are not having that encounter on the 20th of each month or whenever we hit the number 20 or 11, so that they don't understand, well, that's the time to do the different councils. And we have different number sequences during the month, which goes with the rotundum. And every time we hit an 11, whether it's in the physical plane or it's on the emotional field or it's on the mental field, then we are having these options and opportunities to create these holographic councils, all depending on what layer of our energy system we're working with. And if people don't know that, then it's going to be very difficult to get out of the enslavement program, which is made. It has been built in that you can free yourself. That's why we got Buddhism, path of liberation. That's why Paul taught the Christians to be slaves in Christ instead, because doing the rituals there would get them out of their enslavement and onward and so forth. And we had the whole idea of the Jews that left Mitzrayim and they went through the wilderness and they went through different trials and different situations to get to the land of milk and honey. So, and we have other similar scenarios within the different cultures on our planet. So this is just it's everywhere. Okay. So it's possible, but you have to work for it. Nothing is given by these aliens. There's not just one faction that has you under control. As you understand now, your biovessel is one thing, your emotional field is another thing, and your mind field is a third thing. There are engineering technologies behind that. There are genetics behind that belongs to someone. And there are the proprietorial rights, if we can call it that, the ones that have got your template as their property. They have that claim on it unless you prove them wrong in these trials. So that's the trialing. That's all about you regaining control of your template. And even though you have done so, there's just another faction that kind of say, yeah, well, I've contributed here or there, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Complete manipulation, but that does not take away that this is how it's done. So to get to the point where we can become change makers and get to the negotiation table is a very, very long path of liberation. It's very, very complex. So if you're not by now, because of what's going on in our reality, can see this and have experienced just a little tiny bit of something, I would say the prognosis of you activating is not necessarily getting higher as time passes by, because either you're under control of some faction, which is unpleasant, but you can get out, but there is some serious things you need to do. And step 2, you are either so parasited that you have no control of your emotional field or your body or anything you are. So you're not mastering the base program and yourself in any direction. So you might think you are, but the matter of fact is you're not, because you're not seeing and sensing or experiencing anything. And the third part is where you kind of, you might see and experience things, but you're not utilizing it to progression work. You're not utilizing it to do the right type of energy work. And many of you get into that idea that, oh yeah, I'm seeing a lot of stuff. And then it disappears because I ask it to go away, or it goes away because I am sitting in my light bubble of love and light or whatever. It's not. You're just pushing it into a higher dimensional layer, but still there. It's just waiting to come back. It's just waiting for you to be pushed somewhere where you can't keep up your light bubble, or some situation where you will get in contact with some kind of energy that will recreate that type of signature inside your energy system, and then it will come right back. So the game is also the ability to self-adjust. So how well are you at self-adjusting? And that is when we make mistakes, because it's all about mistakes. And there are different approaches to that. There's one in which we kind of know, yeah, I did that. I wouldn't be without it because it taught me a lot. You know what? I'm not very fond of that approach. I want to vomit every time I hear it, because it's just kind of, yeah, buddy, you have not learned a single thing. The right response would be, that was fucking stupid. But here, this is what I've learned. I made the evaluation of it. This is the assessment. And this is, I went wrong there. I went wrong there. I went wrong there. I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have done this in that situation, in that manner, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's the evaluation of the stupidities we do, because we'll continue to do the stupidities all over the time, as we're moving through the different layers of our reality and learning to master these, and whoever is there of entities, non-dimensional, dimensional, non-organic, organic, whatever is there in the original density energies of our system. So we will continuously have to learn what we are encountering. But the point is not to be perfect when we encounter these beings, because nobody is, because if you don't know what they are, how are you going to respond correctly? So you need to have some experiences with whatever you're encountering. And again, most of the things people are seeing now, 95% are just holographic, artificial timelines, programs, because they have taken everything we learned from the stellar activation cycle, all that's been put out on the internet, and the cubes have recorded it and created some very, very clever master programs, which most people are now under the influence of, and they think they're still seeing reptilians, and they're still doing this, and they're still doing that. Not that there are not few of them left, but how it was 20 years ago and 10 years ago, absolutely not, because we're in a new reality program. And they're not here. They're not even interested. We got technology and grays and insects and low-level avians. And then we have got all of the other forces that belongs to what we would call the negative agenda. So yes, there are still few of them left, but not much, because they have moved on. But this is, again, those who can't move on, of course, they're still here, or they're remnants of them, or there could just be some kind of old timeline imagery, which you then step into. And then when you're there, it seems as if they're real, because it's part of your past. And holographic units have a tendency to mirror up whatever was there as if it really was there, as similarly as if you go into a childhood memory, you go back and remembering something which is a fresh memory, and sometimes it feels as if, wow, it's really there. It just felt as if I was there. And that's a memory. So that will feel very strong as well. But that needs to be transformed too, not just, oh, that was amazing, kind of gullible way of seeing these things. You need to know to respond to whatever comes your way. So therefore, we need to evaluate after everything that we encounter, figure out what it is. Was it technology? Was it artificial? Was it actual? What was the purpose of it? What did I do with it? And you need to assess the situation while you're in it. Of course, I don't ask that of you when you start up, because of course you don't know that, but you should learn by your mistakes. And that's what the evaluation is all about, and learning by practice. So that's also where you kind of see how far you are in your quote unquote fourth cycle. Because many of you that are activating now, you are in your 4th cycle, but it all comes down to how do you respond to these experiences? Do you derive sciences of it and learn to work on a higher level of the energies? Or are you just collecting some kind of emotional human experience that's kind of, whoa, or that was bad, or that was sad, and you put what we could call human emotions towards it. When you evaluate it, you feel sad and you feel sappy or you feel depressed or whatever. And I did that in the beginning too. So that's kind of natural because that's the emotional response that we have. But as you clear out your emotional field, and you should, also going back to childhood trauma or whatever patterns you have in your emotional field of this life and past lives, and all the things that are controlling your emotional habitus and response mechanism. As you get cleared of these, your mind field should kick in, and you should really go in and learn everything there is to learn about this. You should really be like the scientist. And let me just give another example. As a kid, my bike was not working well. I was waiting for my dad to be able to fix it, and he was always working, so he never had the time. So what did Randy Green do? She went to her bike and she tried to fix it herself, which she managed to do. Or I had a clock that was not working and he was not doing it. So what did Randy Green do? She went to in the inventor mode and tried to fix it herself, which she managed to do. Going through a lot of panic because after I disassembled the clock, I can't fucking remember how to put it back together. There was a lot of panic and the scaredness I felt, I might have ruined it and all of these kind of things. But that's kind of the boldness of the scientist and the inventor, that we are not afraid of figuring out how things work, even though we might fail at assembling it again. And then we'll learn by our mistakes over and over again. And not only do we learn the sciences, we also adjust to them. And that's the most important part, because I have seen people, again, with this spectrum of different responses, I've seen people that have done the evaluation, that has kind of understood what it was, or at least discussed it with me. Again, it would have been better if they figured it out on their own. So this is where, how do you learn the best way? When you figure out things on your own, not when someone teaches it to you. And then actually the whole people are being taught here in this society, you need to be taught something before you can do it. But actually, when we work with the inner realities, it's better to do it first and then fail tremendously and then study, okay, what could I have done? What would be the right approach to this one? Similarly, as you know, with when you do the Michael Newton books, as in kind of you go into incarnation, you come home and you assess whatever's been going on, and all these tourists, because they're not part of the original human collective, but these tourists that were part of these hosting in on the human body. Right? They went back home and then they did the assessment once they have learned whatever they needed to learn here. And they were nothing but tourists. We have had a lot of that under the old world order as well, because it gave a kind of infusion, similar like tourism that we're having in other countries, poor countries, etc., that are having a tourist industry. So it gives them infusions of money, but at the same time also is depleting the environment and destroying these beautiful nature habitats. Similar process with the tourists that have been part of our system under the old world order. So the assessment should not only be as in kind of really recognizing, I fucked that one up big time. Then you should do the clearing work, so you learn from it to get yourself back on your 2 feet and get yourself balanced. Then you should do the evaluation. Whatever I learned from that, what was the sciences, what was the aha moments of this experience? So that will be part of your energy system. And then when you encounter it again, you might say, well, it's not completely the same, so you'll give it a try, but you will quickly assess the situation next time. And the first time you probably, as I were, took me a long time to get it. Wow. The second time, shorter period of time before, I recognize that one. I know that one. Okay, I'm out of here. I'm out. Close the door. Enough with that one, because I know what the ramifications are. I learned my lessons. And the third time, you're just spotting it almost instantaneously. You still have to have a situation where you're kind of a little bit fucked up, where it's not going the right way, but you shut it down as quickly as possible. So you nip it in the bud and you take it before it becomes a big problem. That's how we learn. That's how we learn to do it the right way. Again, the 3 attempts, because from after then on, you should not have that experience again, because then you should really have cleared it out on all levels and understood it in all of its specters. one spectrum, more spectra. So you should be able to understand what you're actually dealing with in spite of its variations, because you will be kept pushing into different timelines where that thing will just be a little bit different. And if you have that hope that there will be something good out there, then they will play you on that one. And if you are like me, kind of say, yeah, I'm not having any hope whatsoever, I don't have faith in anything. Someone asked me about faith, which is kind of a religious concept in my world, right? You can have confidence in yourself. That's a whole other thing. But you don't have trust in things working, because everything can break down. And you don't have faith. That's for the gullible ones. That's for the sheeple, right? That's a religious concept. So you don't have faith. You have confidence because you know what you're dealing with is capable of solving the situation, and that would be yourself or other people. And you know they can fail. And if they can, you will, of course, assist the best way you can. So you're in control of the situation, not just blindly having faith that they will fix it for you or trust that they will get the right solution. Of course not. So you can have confidence because they've proven that they are skilled in doing what they're doing, but they are not someone you can trust or put your faith into. Not at all. We don't do that in the fifth cycle. We have confidence that people are skilled and can do what they need to do. But if they show signs via the trial of 3, right? If they show signs of not being able to handle the situation, we remove that trust, so to speak, or confidence. We remove that from these people and saying, yeah, I kind of get it. You're not ready yet. So I will not put further energy into your process. I will not invest further because, to be honest, I'm not really confident that you are living up to your potentials, and you need to learn a lot of stuff, and you need to really be more strong-minded, and you need to be more effective, and you need to learn to assess better, and you need to learn to be able to invent more on your own, because that's a very, very strong fifth cycle change maker trait, that you are able to fix things on your own, and you find the solutions on your own, and you deal with it on your own, and you come up with the highest purity rate, high standards, and highest progression rate when you do it on your own. You're not really relying on the collective. So, and why can we do that? We can do that because we already done the fourth cycle and understand all of these dynamics. And if we are around people of the fourth cycle, well, then we will use these dynamics. But if we are around people in the fifth cycle, we will work differently in the teams of scientists and workers. And here I'm really talking advanced workers and not just the local workers, and figuring out, okay, the goal of this joining together our abilities is to achieve a very, very big project, a very, very large goal, and not just a little, I want to earn money thing in these little businesses, or I want to have a family, lower base program orientations. So there is a huge difference between being in the fourth cycle and in the fifth cycle. And that's where those of us who are in the fifth cycle and have the fifth cycle mentality, we have had a bit of a trouble. I had a lot of troubles being in this world under the old world order that tried to keep humanity within the fourth cycle, because the old world order races were part of the fourth cycle and they failed during the fifth cycle. So they were not really interested in going there where they had to face their own demons and their infectious rate and all the things that they had gathered during the times of Atlantis. Some of them actually cut it away from their entire energy system, which means they might have actually gone into the fifth cycle, but because they failed so much, they cut it away, and therefore they will never get beyond the fourth cycle, which means that they will reach a highest potential rate, and then they will begin to decline because there's nowhere else to go. So that's also some of the issues why some of them ended up being insectoids or greys or whatever, as in kind of, yeah, I reached the top, I've got nowhere else to go from here. Okay, then there's only one way, and that's down. Okay, so that's also part of it. So that's also why we need to continue to progress and develop ourselves. And we do that via experiences, via the way we handle the experiences, via our self-assessment and our self-adjustment, so that whatever experience we have, we adjust our energy system, our code systems, the way we respond to it. We learn by these encounters, and we learn our weaknesses so we can transform these into strengths of knowledge, where we then know what to do the next time we encounter a similar event, a similar situation, or a similar person. And that does not mean that we won't get hit by it. It doesn't mean that we won't get attacked. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means we become more efficient when we transform our energy system back into its balance point, which I also talk about in the whole transition science classes. So there's a whole new psychology connected with being a change maker and being humans that are now walking into the fifth cycle and are trying to get on board the 2025 timeline that would lead us there. There's a complete new type of psychology, and that's what I have started here with the Changemaker course material, where I outline what we know now, because it will of course change as we move further into the remaining part of the 3-9 pillar and further into the 2-8 pillar, which I will do my very best to avoid, because I've already been there. I took that one in 18 and 19 and 20 and 21. I already did my process there with the underworld forces and the negative female energies and everything that's down in the 2-8 pillar and all of the mammal races that got stuck there after the timeline event. So I hope I can not be hit. That's not the case, but can navigate through that stream of chaos in a little bit more gracious way, let's just call it that, one, than being constantly plunged into all sorts of weird stuff. At least now, it all depends on how bad it's going to get. If the whole entire reality becomes what we call a zombie world, well, then it's going to be very, very difficult to navigate gracefully through anything. So that's something we will discuss later on. Right now, we're working with what we call the different aspects as it has been outlined, and have confidence in there will be some kind of solution. It might not be the optimal one, but there will be some sort of progression rate somehow, somewhere that we can use to transform energy. And everything that comes our way is an opportunity to transform. And if we do it correctly, we will learn a lot from it, and we will strengthen our energy system to detect these anomalies quickly whenever we encounter them. And by that, have fewer ramification or fewer or lesser hard effects from the encounters that we will get in the years to come inside this reality field, because that's part of it as well. So that is when we talk about, okay, when you are a change maker and you want to kind of create what I would call the systemic dynamic business model, you also have to be a chaos pilot. And that's some of the things we will investigate in the courses that will follow this one. But for now, for those of you who decide not to continue because you've either been too offended or you kind of realize, yeah, I'm not there yet. I'm still too much ingrained in my family settings. I still have things I need to learn here. I propose to you that you definitely get through the whole transition science classes and learn to work with the fourth cycle energies, at least complete it as it's supposed to be completed, and not within your human comfort zone, but in the density level where you truly learn what are the dynamics of the fourth cycle and what were you supposed to learn. So whatever old world order setting you have, you can at least say to yourself, I've done everything I could to complete the fourth cycle, but this is so far as I can push it, but at least I've done every single thing I could to achieve the highest progression rate of this cycle. And with that also said, some of you that choose to do that, you will go under what we call a retirement plan from the different races that are here. All depending on where you live in the world and who's taking over your jurisdiction, that means your country. There is absolutely no doubt that Europe has a huge degree of transhumanism, and it also has a huge degree of retirement plans for the majority of humans within Europe. And there are also sections of Europe that are connected to the underworld, such as the countries that are closest to the equatorial line and were part of the old kingdoms under the Baals, right? So there are things that are determined by who and what have lived there earlier on, because we're going into the racial grids and the different root races. So that will determine how these countries will unfold their planetary activation cycle dynamics and what encounters they will have. So it is determined by where you live. And the races that are controlling our reality might not let us leave where we are born. So that is also some of the things that we need to brace ourselves and understand the culture that we're part of, the history of our country and how old it is. Because the older it is, the more contamination it holds. Because there have been so many people living and thriving in these countries, on these parts of our planet. Whereas you can say the northern hemisphere, the top levels of it were covered in ice until 12,000 years ago. So we have not been worn out, what you call it, it's not been wasted and contaminated to the same degree. But it doesn't count for all, because we're also having up in Siberia that is kind of, that still was covered in ice. And it has been for a very long time, but that's because the infectious rate there was so high back then in the olden days, in the fourth cycle, that everything collapsed up there. And that's also some of the mammoths and some of the animals they're now reviving, which is a very bad idea, because they have some nasty gene codes that we really don't want to get back into the collective. But that's part of the Russian agenda, whatever's going on there. So there are issues that will come now, which humanity as a whole is completely unprepared for. And that's part of the pioneer work, where I will, once I've done this changemaker course material, will then frog leap into the sciences and really just blast away in, this is how we're supposed to work with it, as if people were already in the fifth cycle and were utilizing fifth cycle consciousness, and this is what we're supposed to do to solve all the issues. Well, then that has at least been done and exemplified and put into a context, put into frames of references, as well as put into some kind of what we call teaching materials. So it's, at least it's there, it's seeded, and then it's up to people if they can use it as they get more and more of these experiences. My class material and the whole academy, the goal of that one is, of course, to give you the sciences and the understanding, so you kind of say, now I get it, that's that. And then you can take it to do your assessment and evaluation and look at the situation you were in, so you completely understand it and adapt that knowledge to your energy configuration and to your original energy system, so that you will unfold that type of vibrational energy that will ignite your radiation field, and by that allow you to begin to activate your template potentials. But all of that is part of the template science courses. How to do that, it's as far as it can be explained, because there are limitations to how much that actually can be explained. But the preliminaries and the overview and the general level can always be given. And this is what we'll be working with in the next two courses of the Changemaker course material, and moving into the pioneer work, so that will be put out there and unfolded. But that's the next long process of work that I'll have to do, because beginning to work with the fifth cycle sciences in this reality, that's a challenge I'm up for. It's going to be very, very complicated. I have no doubt about that. And I don't even know if I'm going to succeed, but I like the challenge. So of course I'll take it. And the challenge also goes with, that's the only way I can begin to activate the fifth cycle level of my mind field. Thank you.